So tell me what's going on.
Good surprise yesterday. A competitor of mine who's in Toronto. Actually, I met the guy like a year ago, and he got back to me. He's like, "I have something to offer you." And then we went on a call, and he's like, "I don't know the market since everything is different here. Like the laws are different, the culture, the language, everything is different here." So he's like, "Well, I can't seem to get in the market, so I'm looking for someone to partner up." It's like, I thought of you because he knows me, and he knows I'm good in the area. And he's like, you're interested in partnering up? I was like, yeah, sure, I'm interested. And the guy's bigger than me, and he's doing a lot of marketing, and he seems to be structured. I know he's coached by someone else. I can't remember who. He told me once. But yeah, he offered me to partner up. The thing is he offered a 50-50 partnering up, and he's doing all the marketing. Actually lead managing, and I'm doing all the rest. So acquisition, bring it all the way to closing.
Okay.
And I was like, man, I wanted to, ask you, what do you think about this? Because I think it might be not that much, 50% for doing all the work except lead manager.
Yeah. Let me hear your gut response to it first. Like, where does it sit with you? And then I'll give you my perspective. And I have a couple questions, obviously, My
gut response was, well, marketing's like on average 30 to 40% of your budget. So I figured like a 60-40 would be fair.
Okay.
That was my gut feeling.
So the first thing you want to do is do some math, right? Like, to make $100,000 in wholesale fees, how much marketing has to go out, and then how many leads are going to come in, how many deals get done, what is the average profit margin?
Yeah.
Because if he's 40%, that means he brought home 40 grand. But if he spent 25, 30 grand to get there, he probably won't be very thrilled about that.
No, exactly.
Right. So, you got to do some math, but then you got to be very transparent. If you are thinking of going down this path, then you got to be very transparent. Like, hey, let's do some real rough math here if you want to go down this path, right? For us to make 100 grand, I would never do anything for less. And honestly, I probably wouldn't want to do it for 100 grand. Like, if we're going to partner, the idea of partnering is to do double what you're currently doing.
Yeah.
So here's my perspective on partnerships, just so you know. Most people get into a partnership for the wrong reasons. Most people get into a partnership because they're trying to fulfill a role they lack, right? Or a strength or a weakness in their game, right? So for example, you might bring on a partner because they're really good with the operations, you're really good in sales.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I get that. I totally agree that, if you're more sales oriented, visionary, not so integrator, operational oriented, then you want someone to fill that for you because you're not good at it. So that means you're not going to do it, etc.
Yeah.
The problem I see with that more often than not is you're giving away 50% of your profit for that person, and that person can be hired for a fraction of 50%.
Yeah.
I tend not to be a massive advocate for partnerships. Not saying they can't work, not saying this won't work, but I tend to say people usually partner because they don't want to make the investment in their business to hire a role that could do the same job just as good, right? So their partnership means they earn income while the business earns, right? Most people don't want to, outlay payroll to someone who could fulfill that job because they're worried about operational cost. Well, I get that. You're at a level that, like, I would rather you outlay operational cost because you have the ability to create income. You're already there, that you can just look at a P&L, and I'm happy to do this with you. And you can say, okay, how much can I afford to pay this person so that I don't have to do it? And the only thing I'm doing is sales, sales, sales.
Yeah.
So when you get, and by the way, I've had a very similar relationship as what this guy is offering for you. So I've had what I've called like a marketing partner.
Yeah.
These were local investors in my market. And I essentially just had to paint the picture out mathematically, because they didn't want to do my side of the business. They didn't want to deal with the seller. They didn't want to negotiate. They didn't want to do that. They're like, I want to send out marketing and I want to cherry pick rentals. That's really what I want. And I said, okay, so here's how we can break this down, because obviously you're not going to do this for free. Basically, we mapped it out that my side would get 65% of the deal and their side would get 35%.
Okay.
That financially worked for a pretty good amount of time, except for the deals we were getting weren't great rentals for them. And that's really what they were trying to achieve. So ultimately it didn't work out, but because it worked out mathematically in the sense of they got their 35% and they were okay with that, because, you know, they spent the money and they would make a decent little profit, right? Like for the amount of money they would spend based around the amount of deals we did in volume, they made some decent money. It wasn't like life-changing money.
Yeah.
But they weren't, you know, they were happy with that. What they realized wasn't working is because we were getting deals that weren't great rentals for them. So they were like, this really isn't working out. Not because they weren't making money, it's because they couldn't cherry pick any of the deals. These deals were, you know, not perfect rentals for them for one reason or another. Maybe they needed too much rehab or whatever the case was be. Maybe the price point was too high, whatever. So I would tell you, it's always good to be open to conversations. But if you're going into it because you think he can help you make more money, could you do it in a different way? That's the question.
I guess I could. What I realize is actually it could be beneficial in two ways. It's just gonna, because he's using channel that I don't use, basically, that I could use but I don't, and we're pretty much both on top of AdWords and SEO. So, and he's like, I'm willing to tone down my AdWords just so I'll stay on top, and he's gonna put more money in what I don't use, actually, like more farming, sending letters, cold calling people, which I don't do. So in that way, I was like, maybe it makes sense. He's focusing on channel that I don't use, and I would be focusing on channel that he's not using.
Yeah. Well, I like that a lot, right? So there were some more questions. Now that you know my general perspective about partnerships, I believe people get into them for the wrong reason. I'm not fully against them, right? Mm-hmm. I had a partner for roughly 11 to 12 years of my business. And it's not like it didn't end on bad terms at all. He went in, worked with Kent, and, I stayed in the business. So it didn't even end on bad terms. My point being is partnerships tend to end on bad terms. Partnerships tend to get ugly is because people always want more. They don't feel like they're getting enough, whatever the case may be. And especially when you're playing at a high level, you have two, wolves, right? And they want it their way and they're used to doing it their way. And so I'm cautious when people do that. But here's what I do think is I want to know more about what he proposed. Like the fact that you just told me he would ramp up a strategy you're not even doing, and he would reduce a strategy that you guys are competitive in. That's a win-win for you. Because what I wouldn't want you to do is go stop your strategy and, partner with him. I would want you to continue to run your model.
Yeah.
But if that means he's going to not be a competitor for you, well, that's a bigger win. That's almost as big as a win is getting new deals, right? Because now you're really
exactly.
Okay, so I like that. So what I always look at is what are they trying to get out of this?
Well, he's trying to expand in different markets. Basically, he's in Toronto. He's also in Ottawa, and he's trying to get into Montreal's market. It's just he's having a rough time because everything is different. Laws are different and all that stuff. And he doesn't know the market as much as the other area, and he seems to have bad hiring. He can't find anybody competent, so he went and asked me because I'm closing a lot of deals. So basically, he would keep...
So because he's unfamiliar with the terrain, he's saying I'd rather partner with someone who's good with the terrain, and at least I will get deals going.
Yeah, exactly. Because he showed me like how many deals he had, how many he had lost also, and he was closing on maybe like 3 out of 15. No, not even 1 out of 15. I was closing 3 out of 15. He was closing 1. It was like there's something going on. It's either I can't seem to get in the market.
So
and I was like, well, I'd rather have someone collaborating than competing with in the same market.
Dude, I'm a huge collaborator. My entire career, I've collaborated with many, and they're not all names that you know, but like me and Sean have done a lot together, right? I've done a lot of deals with Cody, names that you do know. I'm just referencing them. But like, there's a guy, 𝐿𝐫𝐤𝐧 out here. He's kind of the godfather out here. He was one of the original OGs down at like the auction courthouse steps. And so him and I have done like hundreds of deals together. And I say that all to say partnerships can work as long as everyone knows their rules, their role, right? And so, for example, the guy 𝐿𝐫𝐤𝐧 that I just referenced, he's a buddy of mine, and we had a very similar relationship that this guy is posing to you, because he was all courthouse steps and other investors. That's how he was getting his deals. He spent not $1 in marketing. And he was like, hey, dude, I know you do a lot of direct mail. I know you do a lot of cold calling. Like, I know you spend your money. Like, I have a lot of money. Like, is there a way that we can put together where I finance the marketing and we do deals together? And we did it, quite honestly. But what ultimately happens is because there's a split of the profit, his return becomes really thin. So that's the cautionary tale there. Yeah. And we actually did go 50-50. So I forget what it was, but we were running at 20 grand a month together, where he would, I had my business running, we were still doing our own thing, but then he and I had a partnership, just like you're talking about, where I think we were doing at least 20 grand a month minimum. And because we had to pull back his money out of every deal first, which is the right way to do it. So the marketing, first $1's in or the first $1's back. Mm-hmm. So like if we did a deal for 5 grand, I would pay my team the commission, but I wouldn't see any of the money. It goes right back to the marketing side. Make sense? Yeah. So because we had to pay them back and then everything was split 50-50, his return wasn't great, right? Like he just couldn't, it was a good return in the sense of like anyone in the world would say, hey, I'm going to give you $1 and I get back 2, right? Anyone in the world would do that a lot. Yeah. But for him, he was like, dude, it's not really moving my needle. Like to move my needle, right? So basically, essentially, he would put in 20 grand and make 20 grand. So he'd put in 20 grand and make back 40. Yeah. Make sense? Yeah. And he's like, I'm only making 20 grand on this investment, while everyone in the world would love to do that, right? Like if you really think about it, in 90 days, you've doubled your money. Mm-hmm. It's crazy, right? In the real sense of investing, no one can do that, right? But when you're in our space, what we live in, like that's not even close to good enough. You know what I mean? Because essentially he was going to make 80 grand for the year. Yeah. And he was like, dude, it's just, we're not there. Now, those weren't the real numbers. The real numbers were 20 grand in, he would get back 40, but he'd get back 40 like every 60 days. So he would have made 120 grand for the year. And he's already running a very successful 7-figure a year business. So he couldn't figure out a way to do math, right? Like it put an extra $250,000 in my pocket. Does that make sense? Yeah. But it only you
didn't put the money in. So you had 50%, but you only put your time in.
So for me, it made sense. Yeah. For him, it didn't. And so again, and it didn't end bad, but he just had a conversation with me. He's like, hey dude, I just, I can put that money into other things that I think I can just, it's just not working. Right. Like, and I'm like, bro, I kind of get it. Like I've made $250,000. You've made 120. Yeah. So I get it. Right. And it's not that I'm doing anything wrong in terms of I'm not screwing him. It's just, that's how the money maths out. And so you need to be very aware of that going into it. He needs to be very aware of it going into it. And you just need to have honest conversations. I've had these partnerships before, right? And then date before you get married. Like don't do some new LLC and don't do all that. Say, hey, listen, all the leads come to me, right? I manage everything. You literally are just the money. How did he want to structure it?
With him, literally only be the money, because he's actually like his team would manage, roughly, then qualify them. And as soon as they're qualified, he would send it to me.
So he is driving the leads into his own team and his team qualifies him.
Yeah.
I don't love that because he's looking at you to convert more than he is, but his team's qualifying him.
Yeah, pretty much.
I would say then the reason why he's not having much success is because his team isn't doing a great job qualifying.
Could be, actually. That's a good point. I didn't thought about it, but yeah, it's a good point. Maybe his lead manager are not doing a very good job.
Yeah, and so I would say the leads have to go directly to you. That's the only option. You take it from end zone to end zone. He's just the money.
Yeah, that could be an idea. And then I could work out 60 or 65%.
I like it better. I just don't think he'll like it.
I don't know,
but you don't need him. The nice part is you don't.
No, I don't need him. No,
and so it gives you a lot of strength to say, hey, I'm open to this, but here's how I need it to go down. Because otherwise, if your team's qualifying the leads, well, your team right now is not doing as good as I'm doing. So there's a break in the chain. So I need to qualify the leads and contract the leads, right? You're just the money. And first dollar's in or first dollar's out. And then the split is 60-40 or whatever you want to negotiate. If you want to do 50-50, do it. I've done it. But like, you just do the math, right? So if he puts 20 grand in and you make 100 grand, he gets his 20 grand back. So there's 80 grand left. He makes 40, you make 40.
Yeah, that could be interesting. Yeah, I want to talk to him about this because it could maybe make sense. I don't know.
I mean, it's 40 grand you don't currently have, but is it also like there's other things that you need to be aware of? Is it taking away from your own business? I don't know how to answer that.
Taking away from my own business? That what you mean?
Would it be taking away? Like, would it be taking you out of your own lead flow? Like, would you be harming your own business to work on those leads? Would it overwhelm you?
Well, potentially, of course, because it's gonna take some of my time, but it's not gonna take away the leads that I have. But it's probably gonna take my time though.
Yeah, well, if you don't have enough time to work your own leads the way that you need to work your own leads, you're going to hurt your own business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
So you got to be aware of that. Like, you got to look at all angles, right? And that's why it's nice that you don't need him. But if you want to get this done, then make sure it's on your terms. Like, hey, here's what makes sense to me.
Because honestly, like my first feeling I had, like I feel like he literally, like I'm his last stop before he pulls back, because he's like, I've spent $100,000 on like cold calling and stuff like this, and it seems like he doesn't get the return he's hoping for. He's getting a third of what he's doing in Toronto. So basically, I that's my feeling. I don't know if it's true or not, but my feeling was like he's thinking about pulling back, and I'm his last resort.
Yeah, ask him. I mean, I'm just always really upfront. I would say that directly to him. Hey, dude, I've been thinking about our meeting, and I'm kind of like trying to ask myself, why would you want to be doing this? I get this feeling that you're ready to just give up and pull the plug and be done. Am I wrong? Right? Just be totally transparent.
Yeah.
That's the best way. We're adults. Like, there's no reason not to have an open conversation. Right. And let's just say you're not necessarily, you're kind of like, God damn, I feel like there's something up here. Like, there's a trick to this. Then you say that. I'm not saying you do feel that way. I'm saying if you're sitting there like, I feel like there's a trick here. There's something that, then you say it to him. Say, I feel weird about this right now. I feel like somehow it's going to pull me out of my business. And not that you're trying to trick me, but my point being is just full disclosure. Be as open as you possibly can with them.
Mm-hmm.
And if it feels good, you do it. Like, I just had, what I call like the OG, his name's Chris. Like, he's been around so long, dude. He's not going to screw me. I'm not going to screw him. Like, it was just like, I didn't really question whether we had the same intention, right? It was like, hey, he does no marketing. I do a lot of marketing. So if he's willing to invest his money, my team will get the deal done. Because another thing is my team got paid off top, right? So the way you could potentially do that, it is just you, but like, my team makes 20% off top. The reason why my side was bigger than his is because it wasn't like 50-50 in that sense. Make sense? So my team got 20% of the gross number out of the gates. Then he pulled back his marketing dollars, then I made 50% of whatever was left. That's why our numbers were different. You know, again, he kind of just got to this point of like, definitely not the return I was really looking for. And I got it. And I was like, I get it. I mean, it's a great return in everyone else's world for you to be able to double your money every 60 days or so is like, who wouldn't do that? But, you know, in our space, we make so much money. Like you're like, it's not really great. So anyways, that's my thought. I think you go back to him and have another conversation. I'm not 100% against it. I gave you my cautionary tale of why people go into partnerships. It was a great partnership while it lasted, but you need to, don't make anything on any, like, don't go down that route. Just say, hey, let's crawl before we walk, right? Let's go start spending some money. Let's get it routed directly to me. I need to control the lead because I don't believe you're, you know, underwriting them right, or your team is not managing the leads correctly. And that's why you're having such poor conversion and I'm not.
And well, another thought that I had is, since the guy seems to have a bigger team than I do, I was thinking like maybe in a way he could help me grow bigger by like talking to him and like looking at his business, seeing how he works and everything.
Yeah, I think there's a play there for you to learn from someone who has a bigger operation. So I get that, but I probably wouldn't say, hey, you know, what I want to have from this is I want to learn from you, like, because it almost gives him power, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I want you to be in the one of power in this relationship. Now, while, like, let's just say you guys green light this and you guys agree on it, while it's happening, for you to say, hey, dude, you know, I want to, you know, kind of take a look at your operation, whether it's going to the office or like, I kind of want to see how you got to the place you're at with your business. Because at this point, it's just me. Now I'm really good, but like I am looking to grow and want to kind of see how, like, but save that for a little bit. Let that happen more organically than making it part of this initial talks. Make sense?
Yeah, I get it.
Because right now you're in the place of power. He's coming to you.
Yeah.
So keep that power on your side. And you'll be able to, like, trust me, once you guys are starting to do this, you'll talk more. You'll be able to naturally and organically ask questions that you'll start to learn from, right? Like, the thing about people that grow, listen, this guy could be murdering it. I don't know. But I learned the hard way. Like, I don't know, 8 years ago, I jumped into Texas and tried to, you know, do Dallas and DFW and Arlington and all these markets. And I couldn't figure out a way to get the profitability to where I needed it. Now I've jumped into like Oklahoma City and I'm murdering it. I'm getting like a 5X, but I now know what I was doing wrong then. So just because people are in different markets, I wouldn't, you know, just assume they're crushing it.
Yeah.
Just because they say they're in different markets doesn't, you know, there's a lot of people say, oh, well, this, that, and the other, but so.
Yeah. Okay, good. That's a good plan. That wraps up that part.
For you to say, hey, dude, you know, I want to, you know, kind of take a look at your operation, whether it's going to the office or like, I kind of want to see how you got to the place you're at with your business. Because at this point, it's just me. Now I'm really good, but like I am looking to grow and want to kind of see like, but save that for a little bit. Let that happen more organically than making it part of this initial talks. Make sense?
Yeah, I get it.
Because right now you're in the place of power. He's coming to you.
Yeah.
So keep that power on your side. And you'll be able to, like, trust me, once you guys are starting to do this, you'll talk more. You'll be able to naturally and organically ask questions that you'll start to learn from, right? Like, the thing about people that grow, listen, this guy could be murdering it. I don't know. But I learned the hard way. Like, I don't know, 8 years ago, I jumped into Texas and tried to, you know, do Dallas and DFW and Arlington and all these markets. And I couldn't figure out a way to get the profitability to where I needed it. Now I've jumped into like Oklahoma City and I'm murdering it. I'm getting like a 5X, but I now know what I was doing wrong then. So just because people are in different markets, I wouldn't, you know, just assume they're crushing it.
Yeah.
Just because they say they're in different markets doesn't, you know, there's a lot of people say, oh, well, this, that, and the other, but so.
Yeah. Okay, good. That's a good plan. That wraps up that part.